In 1600, one of Japan's most powerful warlords chose the wrong side at the Battle of Sekigahara. His name was Ukita Hideie, and his punishment was not death, which he might have preferred, but exile. He was sent to a small volcanic island far off Japan's coast and told he would never return. He never did. He lived on that island for 50 years. He died there at the age of 83, having never once seen the mainland again. The island is Hachijojima, 800 Rai Island, named for its distance from Edo. For over 1,000 years, it served as Japan's most infamous place of exile, a destination for defeated warlords, dangerous intellectuals, common criminals, and anyone else the government needed to forget. Welcome back to Lost Japan, where we uncover the stories behind places and moments that history almost forgot. Today, we're flying south from Tokyo, technically still within Tokyo's city limits, though it doesn't feel like it, to an island that spent 1,000 years as Japan's place of forgetting. This is the story of Hachijojima, Japan's island of eternal exile. Hachijojima is an island about 290 kilometers south of Tokyo, sitting in the Philippine Sea. Despite the distance, it is technically part of Tokyo Metropolis, a quirk of Japanese administrative geography that makes Hachijojima simultaneously the most remote and the most urban of islands. The island was formed by two volcanic peaks, once separate, now connected by a low saddle of land. The western peak, Hachijo Fuji, is still considered active. The eastern peak is a rounded, densely forested mountain that dominates the skyline. Between them, the flat plain holds the main town, the airport, and the island's farmland. The climate is subtropical by Japanese standards, warm, humid, and subject to intense typhoons that roll through in summer and autumn. Vegetation is lush year-round. The warm Kuroshio current that passes the island brings exceptional marine biodiversity, which is why Hachijojima is one of the most popular dive destinations accessible from Tokyo. Hammerhead sharks are a regular sight. Today, roughly 7,000 residents live from a mix of agriculture, tourism, and fishing. The island is reached by JL domestic flight from Haneda in about 55 minutes, or by overnight ferry from Tokyo's Takeshiba Pier. The ferry, 11 hours of open ocean, gives a better sense of the real distance. There are no traffic lights on Hachijojima. One convenience store, a handful of restaurants, a small museum, and a legendary local shochu made from both sweet potato and barley. On the surface, it is a relaxed and pleasant. The practice of sending criminals and political enemies to remote islands has a long history in Japan. Hachijojima's first recorded exile arrived in the Nara period, the 8th century, and the practice continued with varying intensity for over 1,000 years until the Meiji era in the 19th century. During the Edo period, when Japan was under the tight control of the Tokugawa shogunate, exile to Hachijojima became systematized. The shogunate maintained a formal list of remote islands designated as places of banishment. Hachijojima sat near the top for serious offenders, those who deserved harsh punishment but for whom execution was, for political or personal reasons, not the preferred outcome. The categories of people sent were varied. Defeated military commanders like Ukita Hideie after Sekigahara, political criminals, men who had spoken against the shogunate or engaged in prohibited activities, ordinary criminals convicted of severe offenses, and occasionally people who had simply been in the wrong place when powerful men decided they needed to disappear. The voyage itself was punishing. Exiles were transported by small boat across several days of open ocean, a crossing that carried real mortality risk in bad weather. On arrival, they were placed under the supervision of local officials and integrated loosely into the existing island population. Conditions of exile varied enormously by status. Ukita Hideie, former commander of 17,000 troops, one of the most powerful lords in Western Japan before his defeat, lived under a form of supervised house arrest. He was given land to cultivate. Over time, he became a recognized member of the island community. He fathered children on Hachijojima. His descendants live there today, over 400 years later. Lesser exiles had harder experiences. Those convicted of ordinary crimes were assigned to labor, working in conditions close to imprisonment. Many did not survive their first years on the island. But something unexpected accumulated over those 2 centuries of forced migration. The people who arrived on Hachijojima brought things with them: skills, knowledge, cultural practices, mainland fashions, ideas that had nowhere else to go. Textile workers brought weaving techniques. Educated men brought literacy and classical learning. Merchants brought commercial knowledge. The island absorbed. The most visible legacy of Hachijojima's exile history is its textile tradition. Kihachijo, yellow Hachijojima silk, is one of Japan's most distinctive regional fabrics. The characteristic golden color is achieved using plant dyes extracted from local vegetation. The bark of the Carias tree and the leaves of the Hachijokariasu reed, species found almost nowhere else. The resulting fabric is warm-toned and luminous in a way that photographs do not quite capture. At its peak, Kihachijo was exported to Edo as a luxury item worn by merchants and townspeople who couldn't afford samurai-class clothing but wanted something beautiful. The weaving traditions that produced Kihachijo were developed and refined in part through the influence of mainland craftspeople who arrived as exiles. Skilled weavers brought to the island against their will contributed techniques that became permanently embedded in the island's cultural identity. It is a strange kind of cultural exchange, forced migration producing genuine art. The educational legacy of exile is harder to trace, but probably equally significant. Literate exiles often served as teachers on Hachijojima, where formal education was otherwise limited. Scholars, monks, and educated merchants passed on reading, writing, and arithmetic to islanders who would have had little access to formal learning. The island's literacy rate, by the standards of the Edo period, was unusually high, a direct consequence of the mainland mines the shogunate had deposited there. The Meiji Restoration in 1868 ended the formal exile system. Political prisoners of the new era were still occasionally sent to remote locations, but the systematic use of Hachijojima as a permanent dumping ground ended. What didn't end was the island's relationship with its exile history. The descendants of exiles make up a significant portion of today's population. Local families trace lineages to mainland lords and commoners alike, and this mixed heritage is considered a point of pride rather than a source of shame. Ukita Hideie, the warlord who arrived as a defeated enemy of the shogunate and died 50 years later as an old man of Hachijojima today is visited mainly by divers, surfers, and hikers, people drawn by the natural environment rather than the history. Most visitors arrive for the water. The diving is genuinely exceptional. The warm Kuroshio current brings hammerhead sharks to the waters off the southern coast with enough regularity that it's become a draw in its own right. The coral and fish diversity are among the best accessible from any major Japanese city. The historical sites are modest but genuine. The Hachijojima History and Folklore Museum holds exhibits on the exile system, the Kihachijo textile tradition, and the island's natural history. It is a small institution, quietly maintained and worth several hours. The exile cemetery still exists. Many of the people sent to Hachijojima, the ones who never made it back, who died of illness or exhaustion in the early years of banishment, are buried there. Visiting it, you encounter simple stone markers for people whose stories were never fully recorded. It is one of those places where the sheer weight of accumulated history becomes briefly, uncomfortably legible. Kihachijo textile production continues on a small scale. A handful of artisans maintain the tradition. The fabric is sold as a premium regional product and remains genuinely beautiful, the kind of thing that looks different in person than in any photograph. The shochu is also worth seeking out. Hachijojima produces both sweet potato. The story of Hachijojima is, at its heart, a story about what happens to people when they are removed from the world they know and placed somewhere they never chose. Some of those people, the lucky ones, the resilient ones, those with enough status or skill to build a life from nothing, left lasting marks on the island. The fabrics, the education, the cultural depth that makes Hachijojima distinct from any other small island in the Pacific, all of it came from people who arrived unwillingly and stayed because they had no choice. There is something worth sitting with in that. The people the government wanted to forget built something worth remembering. The place designed to erase